600 Star Trek characters get mentioned in like 5 seconds. Modesto, California gets a shout out. And is there a Quantum Leap Easter egg? Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
Today, we are doing a review of Lower Decks Episode 1 called Second Contact, which in and of itself is funny. They do Second Contact. How are you today?
Hey, I'm good, and I thought that was a funny concept to start the show with, because you never hear about the second contact. It's always about that first contact.
Right, but it totally makes sense. You know, he's like, you know, we make sure that the names are pronounced correctly. You know, we dot the I's and cross the T's. You know, because usually first contact's like some kind of crazy disaster or something terrible, and these guys just come in and like clean up the mess a little bit.
Yeah, I like that, and I also. They also mentioned like the communications device to be able to understand each other, which is I thought was an interesting little kind of tidbit.
I actually like that too, because they're like, hey, who's the guy that comes in and sets up the communications array so that they can talk to the rest? I mean, it's great to have first contact, but it's useless unless they actually have communication back and forth after that.
Right, and that was it's a very clever entree into that particular discussion. I thought it was a very good way to get us in there. Mm-hmm. And you know, we're dealing obviously with comedy in this particular show, which is going to be the first time we're reviewing anything that has anything comedic.
Oh, is there comedy in that? Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a clever approach, I think, to the comedy in Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like a lot of this episode and a lot of this Lower Decks stuff is for the fans that love to have these kinds of communications and chats, right? So these are the kinds of things that happen usually in the chat rooms of Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like this is going to be the first episode that actually takes the stuff that people talk about in the chats and actually produce it.
Right. First of all, I changed to the correct background. It's our Lower Decks friends. Well, none of the actual Lower Decks, but it's their bridge of the Cerritos. Yeah, let's kind of talk about this show, you know, a little bit more broadly for a second. Yeah, it's a comedy. It's extremely fast-paced. What I immediately loved about it was that it felt like 90s Star Trek. Not so much in the delivery of, you know, what's going on, but just in the place, you know, the timeline or the time frame is a better way to look at it. The uniforms look totally 90s Star Trek. The bridge looks totally 90s Star Trek. The ship, the exterior art of the ship, I thought was beautiful. And right away, the theme song, as soon as I heard the theme song, I was like, dude, it sounds like the Next Generation theme song. And some other people pointed out that the actual intro that's going on during the theme song, you know, the visual aspect is reminiscent of Voyager's intro. So it's kind of like a mix between those two. The song sounded totally 90s. The ship and the intro looked totally 90s. So that was really cool. Makes us feel good. Makes us nerds feel good to see more 90s Trek.
Yeah, and they went into like the schematics of the ship, and they actually shows you where the lower decks are. Like these are the
right.
So these are all the important people up here, and then the rest of us are down here making all this stuff happen. And I thought that's another kind of homage to the people that are not highlighted in Star Trek, right? Because we obviously deal with the captain and the first in command and the usual science officers, and we always are dealing with the upper level personnel of Starfleet when we talk about Star Trek, and the people that do get left out are the other ancillary characters that make a ship run.
Right. And that, you know, that's obviously is a great idea. We're all on board with it. It's very interesting. It's this kind of stuff that we all like, you know, like I love the obscure characters. For example, my first thought was seeing all the different aliens that are hidden in the corners. Like I kept seeing a benzite, and I was really excited about the benzite, you know, because it's an alien I really like, and they've, as far as I know, they've really only been featured in one Next Generation episode. But it was like this blue guy that kind of had a thing in front of his mouth, and he was walking in behind Tendi, or as I like to call her, the bartendi. No, I don't like to call her that, and I never will again, hopefully. But yeah, so there was a benzite back there. I kept waiting for him to like have lines. But as she was leaving, you know, I was like listening in, but he wasn't, you know, he didn't have any lines. Actually, that does remind me of something else that I felt was lacking, which was the absence of the loop troop. Like the people that are coming in to do the voiceover afterwards to fill out the ambiance, you know, like the background actors of sound. So when they're in a bar, you should be hearing bar sounds and conversations and this and that. When they're in a fight, you should be hearing, you know, or like a big battle, you should be hearing like the, oh, shoot over there and what's going on over here. And there wasn't really any of that, especially not in the bar. You're seeing the two characters talking, Rutherford and Tendi are talking, and there are people sitting down around them, and we see those people's mouths moving. They're going blah, 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 you know, pantomiming kind of. But we're not even hearing them in the background. We're not even hearing the background din of the mess hall
conversations. Right.
And I thought that was lacking. Maybe that was because of the coronavirus going on. They're like, look, we're just going to have to do it without. I hope that's the reason why, but it was noticeable. It was noticeable to see people's mouths moving right next to them and zero ambient noise at all in the mess hall. I don't know if anybody else noticed that.
I didn't pay attention to it, but it does sound like something that could enhance the show. Mm-hmm. You know, you see other characters in the background. You want to have that kind of, you know, noise of conversations at least floating in the background. And you can always slide in really cool things in that as well, where you would be able to have Easter eggs in the background.
That was exactly what I was going to, yep, exactly. Because they've got the Easter eggs visually. You have like an alien over here in the corner that's a benzite, or you have this brand new blue fish alien over here. Be cool if you hear somebody say, oh, Gowron. And you're like, whoa, I just heard someone say Gowron. Something like that.
Yeah. Get your hands on my pocket, Tholian. Something like that.
Yeah, there's a Bolian security officer, which was cool. I mean, those are all just cool things that I like to notice, is all the new aliens. There was that new, it looked like a kind of like a blue fish looking alien with kind of had ears out this way. There was another alien that looked regular but kind of had like wrinkles on his forehead. It wasn't really a Klingon. Maybe it was like a half Klingon.
I didn't see any Klingons in this. Did you see any Klingons on the station, or Cardassians?
Well, there was possibly that half Klingon. I mean, there was just somebody that had like ridges or wrinkles on his forehead but didn't fully look like a Klingon. And we saw him a bunch of times. But other than that, no, I didn't see any of those or any Cardassians.
And the green girl character, I forgot her name, but
Tendi, she's an Orion.
Okay, so that's a real alien.
Yeah, her name is Devana Tendi.
Tendi.
She's an Orion. You know, that's a really cool race. They're green. They were originally known for like the Orion slave girls. Sometimes you see them at the convention. They're in all green and little bikinis, but then it turned out that the Orion ladies are actually, they pretend to be submissive, but they're actually the leaders. But then there's also the Orion Syndicate, which is kind of like, you know, a mafia of Orions, you know, so it's kind of a really sketchy race, you know, and there's a lot of mafioso kind of stuff going on and illegal things. And it's definitely a very sketchy, you know, consortium or whatever they are.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's one of those. And that is, to my knowledge, the first time we've seen an Orion in Starfleet. I don't know if she is the first, but it's certainly the first we've seen.
Yeah. The other thing that I liked.
No, actually, sorry. We saw one in the 2009, I think, JJ movie of Star Trek. There was a lady that was an Orion. in Starfleet Academy. I believe it was 2009 or 2013, the second one. Anyway, sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say I also like the tie-in with the character whose mother essentially is the captain of the ship.
Yes.
And I like the family dynamic of them kind of keeping an eye on her, and her dad is being, the admiral of another ship, and I like that.
But then here's the key. They have two different last names. And the mom obviously doesn't treat her like a daughter, and she obviously doesn't treat her like, well, she kind of does. The Mariner does treat the lady like her mom, the way she just gets away with anything. So the answer is that if they have different last names, then Ensign Mariner must have changed her name somewhere down the line there. Maybe she took her mother's maiden name, or maybe she's somehow adopted or something. I would have thought that maybe she just has her dad's last name, but no, it shows that the mother and father are married. So that's not the case, but I'm sure we'll find out by the end of this season, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably easily explained because, they don't want her to have, special status because of her affiliation, and they're probably trying to disguise her, her relationship to the mother and the father.
Like Kate Hudson.
Yes, like Kate.
Well, she has her own last name so that she doesn't get like preferential treatment about her famous parents or whatever. Yeah. But speaking of Ensign Mariner, her first name is Beckett. Beckett. Now the question is that somehow a very subtle Enterprise-ish Easter egg, because Enterprise's captain was Jonathan Archer, played by, what's his name? Scott Bakula, who looks like Alf, kind of. But we love Scott Bakula because he was in Quantum Leap before, and his character in Quantum Leap was Samuel Beckett. Not impossible.
Okay.
Not impossible. That's
that's a lot of drawing for straws there. Okay.
That's like
I had a completely different take on that.
You thought it was about the baseball magazine for baseball cards?
Yeah. I was thinking the baseball magazine, which tells you the prices of different cards, which is called the Beckett.
Right.
And then also the Mariners. One of my favorite players, Ken Griffey Jr. used to play on the Mariners.
Right. And you used to look in the Beckett guide to see how much your Ken Griffey Jr. card was worth. I used to look at my Barry Bonds rookie cards worth in that.
Yeah, exactly. So that was where my mind was going when you said Ensign Beckett Mariner.
Yeah.
But you certainly made a very good tie-in to Quantum Leap, and I thought that was pretty creative. We also heard about these sonic showers, which I've never heard of in the past. She said it's really moist or damp in there,
muggy,
or musty, something like that.
Yeah, that was. I mean, they've mentioned sonic showers in other series, not in Deep Space Nine yet. But yeah, like it is kind of strange that they all sleep in the hall. What's up with that?
Yeah, that was kind of strange. And then obviously there's the guy coming out of the sonic shower with a towel wrapped around him. That was another little interesting.
Well, if you liked that scene, Cirroc, you would have loved.
Yeah, the holodeck scene.
The Olympic tryout, workout, whatever that was. How did you feel about that?
Olympic. Well, I thought that it's creative that you have the ability, because of animation, to really explore things that you probably couldn't explore doing it in a real show. And right. So you have such this creative license to to really go over the top, which they did, with the zombie apocalypse takeover in the mess hall, right? And also with the holodeck kind of transporting them wherever they want to. So that's one thing that this show does have is the creative license to really explore things that they couldn't probably do with a limited budget on actual film series.
I think especially when it comes to like things that would normally go to special effects, because if you think about it, creating a giant alien that's sucking on a dude from kind of looked that spider's mouth looked pretty graphic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
to say the least.
Yeah. And you know, that's something to create that, you know, in actual, you know, like a real life, you know, production, would be much more expensive, much more expensive to create that spider alien. But to do it in an animated show, it's basically the same as making, you know, a building back there or doing a regular sized alien, you know. So that's why it opens the door for them to do whatever they want without having to worry about budget.
Yes, and this Ensign Boimler character is somebody that I thought is another person that I enjoyed, and which is very remarkable for me because they're introducing a whole new cast of characters in this show, and by the end of the first episode, you become actually acquainted with them to a point where you feel like you know them, and I thought that's also a good job by the writers on this. By making us familiar with these people really quickly.
Right. It's hard to do that in 25 minutes. And by the way, the term I was looking for was live action. In a live action series, it's a lot more expensive to make those aliens. But yeah, I mean, it did leave me wanting much more of, you know, the other characters. We really got to know two of the main characters and kind of somewhat, you know, Rutherford and Tendi as well. But we really just got a glimpse of the others. But obviously you can't get 10 characters fully introduced in 25 minutes. We got two bonus characters that we didn't know we were gonna really know about, which was one was Admiral Freeman. They didn't say his name, but presumably his last name is also Freeman. That was one we had no idea existed. And also the Trill lady. That went on the date with Rutherford, which was so cute because when they're under the firefight and they're still talking about what you like to play or what you want to do. And she was a really cool character, kind of reminds us of a young Dax, you know, but I worry we may not see her again. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think we'll see her again. But I did enjoy the scene. I enjoyed Rutherford's character because I thought it's hilarious watching him have these Vulcan cyborg meltdowns, which is hilarious. That is illogical, you know. And I enjoyed their little romance, how brief it was, because, you know, there were times, for example, in the mess hall when everything was going down on their first date and the whole thing is falling apart around them. They hide behind the table and they're kind of touching hands, and they stop in that one little moment and it kind of make the hands touching like something special. And I thought that was kind of hilarious. You know, here you are in the middle of this entire thing and you guys are still like playing footsies. So I thought that was kind of cool. And I also liked his reasoning for not liking her anymore. Like, what kind of woman is worried about kissing when there's clearly a level 2 diagnostic that needs to be run on this entryway?
Which gives us a hint that he and Tendi are going to become an item at some point. He and the Orion girl, because she was with them all the way. She's like, oh yeah, totally, you know. So they're obviously going to be a romance at some point. There was also the Bolian officer who was in a gold uniform, so I'm assuming he is security because he would go on the away missions. But we didn't get any lines from him. I hope we do get some lines at some point from him so we can at least know the character's name. There was, when you mentioned the holodeck, there was a moment that did make me laugh, which was when they say, pick any place in the world or any place in the universe that you want to see, and the holodeck can do it. And he's like, oh, the warp core. And it's just like this dark, gloomy warp core, and they're like, what a loser. Like, you're actually on the ship, and you can go anywhere you want, and you choose a place on the ship to go to. that was funny. I was like, okay, that's solid humor right
there. Yeah, and I mean, there were a few moments where I thought it was very, it was funny humor. The other one was when that door, wouldn't open for them, and then they get on the other side, and she kisses him. She kisses Ensign Rutherford. He says, "Well, I wasn't expecting that." And she says, "Why? What were you expecting?" And he's like, "For that door to open." I was expecting that door to open when we were trying to get it to open. So I thought that was funny. Not so much a big fan of the new training facility, the Olympic training facility. That was all right for me. I enjoyed the little humor. For example, when the captain was asking Ensign Boimler, do you do any personal logs? And he was like, yeah, like at least 5 a day. She's like, yeah, that's a little excessive. Yeah, that's excessive, buddy. You need to slow down with that. So I thought those kinds of lines were funny for me. Those little, they're really brief, but they're just small moments. But I enjoy them because it's that humor that we're missing sometimes, and where it's like, okay, this could go serious, but it also could be funny. I also like when Ensign Mariner was a few of her lines. She starts going on her tangents, and she talks really fast in this show, so sometimes it's hard to keep up. And for me, I actually had to get used to her speed because she was really setting the tone for the action and the speed of the show. The pace was really gauged by her dialogue.
Right.
And I felt like her dialogue was very quick, and it took me a while just to adjust my own listening ears to her speed, right?
Right. Actually, let's take a quick break right now, and then we'll just come right back and talk about that, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. We'll be right back on the Seventh Rule. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Yeah, hello.
I was trying to do the Ensign Mariner like super, and I'm Ryan Husk, and we're doing. But then you slowed it. You're like, relax, Ryan. You're not Mariner. You can't do it. Just slow.
We can't do this show like that. It's too fast.
I mean, the show itself is already very fast-paced because they're trying to cram a ton into 25 minutes or 23 or whatever it is. But on top of that, yes, she was light speed fast. I had to watch it twice.
Yeah, because there were things that I missed. They mentioned the Gallardonians or something, and I don't even know what that was a reference to.
Yeah, well, that's Gallardonians. That was those little pig people that they were doing second contact with. So that was a new race as far as I know. I don't think they've mentioned that one ever before. And our first hint was because they were little 3-foot tall pigs. And that's how you know that they probably weren't in Star Trek before. Unless, you know what I mean? Unless they were just mentioned in an episode, and I've just forgotten, like maybe, Picard's like, Captain's log, we visited the Gallardonians and, whatever, it's possible. Right. But yeah, that's what they were.
Yeah. But then this Ensign Mariner, she's a really quick talker, but she has some really good lines. One of them was like, have you ever been stuck in a sentient cave before? I mean, it's really emotional and that kind of thing. And then she had a whole story about a Yeti stealing her shoes, and then she said he was just being a dick. And then there was a line where I thought that was hilarious, was when Ensign Boimler was being sucked by the giant spider, where she's like, don't worry.
What did that spider's mouth look like to you, by the way?
Can't put my finger on it.
Thank goodness. Not while we're recording.
But yeah, when Ensign Boimler was getting sucked by that giant spider, the Gallardonians say, hey, do you want anything? She's like, yeah, do you got any of that milk?
Yeah.
I thought that was a funny little segue.
It was also funny when they said, oh, we need that for the milk. And she's like, did you hear that? They do milk the spider. It's a real thing. That was cute. I did want to mention, though, and I kind of touched on it at the very beginning, Modesto. They mentioned that Ensign Boimler is from Modesto. And I feel like that's something that, the writers specifically were like, okay, this guy's got to be from Modesto. I don't know if you've ever been to Modesto, but it's in California's Central Valley. Shout out to them. And it's just fun to get an idea of the kind of person that he might be. I've been to Modesto a few times. I've been to some conventions there with our buddy, Mr. Rico Anderson. We've been guests in Modesto, and it's, it's an interesting eclectic mix. And I know that they specifically picked Modesto for him, not just like, oh, let's just pick somewhere. How about Chicago? They specifically wanted to mention Modesto, just like the USS Cerritos. We all know Cerritos as a city just south of LA because they have a bunch of, car places.
Yeah.
That's so funny that like the USS Cerritos, everybody in LA gets a laugh when they hear USS Cerritos.
Yes. Think of Cerritos Auto Square.
Yep, that's the one.
It's where you go to buy a car. But yeah, so when I saw the USS Cerritos, that was another thing. I was like, oh, that's interesting choice in names. And I didn't really pay attention to the Modesto reference, so I didn't even catch that. You got the opportunity to watch it 2 times, so you probably caught way more things than I did. But I did think the animation was good. I mean, not good like, groundbreaking, futuristic, Japanimation or,
Right.
It wasn't that kind of good, but it was good in the fact that it was suited what they're trying to do. It suits the topic. It matches with the theme of Star Trek, and I thought it was appropriate. So it all matched and blended well for me as far as the animation is concerned, just on its own.
Sometimes animation, when you first watch a show, an animated show, you go, ooh, this animation is going to take a while to get used to. Whether it has a certain style, they all have like a certain style or a certain movement that it takes a while to get used to, at least for me. This one didn't, it was very easy to follow, wasn't choppy. It didn't, they don't have like, abnormally, giant torsos and tiny feet, or, sometimes they have really strange, like there's like the Star Wars Clone Wars, they have really elongated bodies, and it's kind of weird. But I will say, with regards to the animation, it seems like a very separate team of people that are creating the characters and interiors of the ship, and the team that is creating the exteriors of the ship and the universe and just all the exteriors. Because when you look at the ship and it's like bright and beautiful and crisp, it's a really nice piece of art. I really like it. And then when you see the interior, it has a different feel. It looks like a cartoon. I don't know if you noticed that, but kind of 2 different worlds there, it seems like.
I would agree with that. Yes, the exterior shot of the ship looks, polished and futuristic, and it could actually almost pass into the realm of the real Star Trek, right? Mm-hmm. It's like it's almost could be in Picard, and I would say, "Whoa, that's cool. That's new ship design or something." But when you cut into the interior space and the actual faces, it is more cartoony and stylized in a completely different way that's not so technical and sleek lines and advanced looking, and it's more, like you say, kind of a primitive throwback to like the 90s. So it has that older school Futurama type feel to it.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Overall, look at the interior here. It's beautiful. I love it. The interior of the ship here, it looks like 90s Star Trek. It looks like the stuff that we know and love and are used to. It's got the L cars, like when people see the Discovery Bridge and they're like, what the heck? That's not Star Trek. They see this and they go, they can relax for a second. They're like, there we go. Now I feel back at home. Now I feel like I'm watching, season 6 of Next Generation or season 3 of Voyager or something. It just feels like you're watching Star Trek. And the exterior of that ship actually was slightly reminiscent of the original Enterprise from the series, Star Trek Enterprise, just a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There are references everywhere. Did you catch all of, by the way, on this show, guys, we do something called non-appearance mentions, which is when they mention a character that does not actually appear on the show. We do that on our reviews of Deep Space Nine. And in this one, we had like 1,000 NAMs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you catch them all, though?
No, I did not. I remember Spock.
Yeah.
I remember Deanna Troi. Just off the top of my head, those are the ones that I remember the most.
Right. Worf actually got mentioned 4 times. He did get mentioned at the end there when the guy was saying when Mariner was saying all the names. He was also mentioned at the beginning when Boimler was being attacked by Mariner with the Batleth, and he was like, Worf, Worf, Worf! But I didn't understand why he was saying Worf. Guys, in the comments below, please tell us, why was he yelling Worf? Like, I actually rewound it like 3 times to try to understand why was he saying, I mean, they were talking about Klingons. She was like,
right.
Oh, Klingons, this or that. She mentioned someone with an eye patch. Maybe he was saying Worf is the Klingon with the eye patch that she was talking about. I don't know. I don't know if you caught that.
No, I didn't. I caught the Batleth fight, the opening scene, and her
Right.
being drunk off Romulan whiskey. I caught all that. I didn't catch the Worf reference.
Yeah.
And it would seem out of place, even though he's a Klingon, but it just wouldn't seem out of place. So I didn't pay attention to that.
I'm sure somebody's got an answer for us. Let us know in the comments, because that's definitely one where I was like, why is he saying Worf 3 times? And I kept rewinding. I'm like, I don't get it. Like, is he just saying a name of a Klingon because he's being attacked by a girl with a batleth? I don't know. But then, yeah, anyway, so at the end, the NAMs, she mentioned Spock, Khan, Wales, which was in, one of the Star Trek movies, Sulu, and she makes a funny anecdote about the sword wielding, which was pretty funny. I like that. Kirk, she mentioned Worf again, Gary Mitchell, Deanna Troi.
Yep. Now, please remind me who the Gary Mitchell character is.
Gary Mitchell is from the original series. He was in just 1 episode, maybe 2. He was a guy that was kind of rumored when the new reboot movies, and people in the second one, people were guessing that Khan was going to be in the new reboot movies. They were kind of trying to leak out that no, it was actually Gary Mitchell, this Gary Mitchell character from the original series, but it ended up being Khan. But yeah, so that's who that is. Just a kind of I can't remember if he was in 2 episodes or just 1 in the original series, but that's who that was. What I would have liked was if she had mentioned a couple characters that we did not know, because everybody she mentioned was somebody we knew. So what that is that's great fan service, and we love it. But it would have been cool if she also mentioned 2 or 3 characters we didn't know that we can find out about later. Like if she named somebody that we meet in Picard next season, for example. Wait, that's impossible. Okay, she would have to mention somebody that will be in Pike's new series, in Strange New Worlds new series. Maybe something like that would be great. Like she says, Joanna Smith, and we're like, who the heck is that? And then in Pike, we meet Joanna Smith. That would be great.
Yeah, that would take a whole lot higher level of coordination than I think they're prepared to do for this animated series at this point. They're like, let us get our feet on the ground and establish our stuff. And they did a good job. And, shout out to Eugene Roddenberry, who I saw as one of the executives on this show. And, he's always doing things with roddenberry.com, and he's always active in the Star Trek community. So I'm happy to see that he's engaged in this new project, and that he's, he's one of the people that are putting this show on, because he obviously knows so much about the entirety of it.
Right. And he's an EP on all of these new series. And that's really cool for us to see. You're right. We see, every time we see that, it's kind of like how I was saying, like when people saw the Discovery Bridge and people got all like fussy because they're like, that doesn't look like Trek, but then they see this and they feel better. When we see Roddenberry's name at the beginning of an episode or a series, we get that happy feeling. We're like, it's blessed. It is by, Roddenberry, and that makes us feel good. That makes us feel like it's all still in the family. It's, he's part of it. He's given his blessing. He's saying, guys, I'm with you. It's Star Trek,
Yeah, and I like it because he's a very good ambassador for Star Trek. I grew up kind of really relating to him because he was one of the younger people that I was around. And so age-wise, I felt really close to him as I was doing DS9. So watching him grow up and become, a man himself and be immersed in the world of Star Trek is really a pleasant thing for me to see. And I always wish him well when I see him because I believe he's a very good guy.
Yeah, we love that guy. He just seems like such an amazing guy. And you've known him for almost 3 decades.
Yeah.
I want to go over just a few things that I thought were funny in this thing, because I think the point of this, like, it's really 2 aspects. One is they want to give us kind of the fan service of saying, look, this is like 90s Trek. It's what you know and love. It's going to expand on that. It's going to give you all these Easter eggs. But it's also a comedy. So sit back and enjoy the comedy. There were some funny parts. I did like Shax, the security officer, the big burly Bajoran security officer, when she's like, what do you recommend? He's like, I recommend we detonate the entire warp core, Captain. She's like, wait, what? No. Like, what do you, like, he's just like, he's going to be the guy that just blow everything. So he's going to be kind of like the Worf of the show, because Worf was always doing that on Next Generation. He's like, Captain, we must destroy them. And he's like, no, Worf, calm down. That made me laugh. And then, of course, right after that, when the captain points at Boimler, she's like, everybody protect this slime, because the implication is that he's the slime. That was funny.
Yeah.
And she calls him Bumford later, which was funny. Bumford and Sons. And one line that was not funny, but it was delivered funny, was Admiral Freeman, when the captain was talking with her husband, and he's like, I got to go. Admiral stuff. Like, he just kind of like slowed it down. I watched that a couple times. That was funny.
Yes. That was funny. And then also him trying to hang up the communicator, like, hang up. And she's like, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you were saying that there's really 2 overall arching things, and one is the comedy, and what was the other thing you were going to mention?
Well, no, the other thing was that they're giving us that 90s Trek feel, that they're trying to, fan service is kind of a strange way to put it, but, it's 2 things. One is the comedy, and the other one is an homage to the 90s Star Trek that we know and love, with the designs of the ship, with the time frame, the fact that this takes place right after Next Generation and Voyager and Deep Space Nine. There are a lot of those things in there that just make us feel like it's a continuation of the Star Trek that we know and love. Discovery is a completely different animal. They're going on in a totally different direction. They're doing their own thing, and that's great. That's what they want. That's what they're doing. Picard is kind of like, showing where are they now kind of feel. And this series is kind of like hey, we're picking up right where we left off. It's in the same time frame, but it won't really deal with any of those, Next Generation, Voyager, and Deep Space Nine. However, they have said that there will be some legacy characters, in other words, some characters from previous series that will be voiced in this series. Like if Riker shows up, or Data shows up, or Kira, for example. Do you happen to have any guesses
on who's going to show up? My guess would be Worf. I think that Worf may make the appearance first.
I was thinking that too, since they mentioned him 4 times already. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they opened with, the bat lift thing. So yeah, I think that he's going to make an appearance. And I understand what you mean about the 90s feel, because when we watch Discovery and you watch their bridge, it's a little bit not as comfortable as what we're used to seeing on a bridge, right? Its setup is not exactly the same. It's a little bit different. And then, of course, the Picard show has that cargo ship that they're flying around in with Rio. So that doesn't give you any of the throwback feel.
La
right?
Sirena. But that's okay because it's like a totally different ship. Yeah.
It's a new, it's a new thing. But this gives us the familiar thing that we all grew up with, which is the Next Generation.
Exactly.
They even have it. It's more bright, and it's a little bit of the pastel-y stuff is just still in there, and so I like that as well. I do like that.
That's the word. That's the perfect word for it. It's the familiarity of it. That's that comfort of familiar settings.
Yeah, and this Ensign Mariner is going to be the driving force. Her and Boimler are going to be the leads on the show and the driving force of the show. We can see that. Couple. Yeah, the odd couple, and we can see that being established here, especially in the line at the end where she says, "I'm your mentor now. I'm your new mentor." He's like, "You can't just assign yourself as my mentor."
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, no, I'm your new mentor." Boom, surprise, bitch! Like the way she says it is like, she's obviously a high energy person that's keeping the pace of the show moving at a place where you don't feel stagnant and you don't feel like, oh, all right, well, when is this thing going to end? She is kind of pushing it.
Right. Have you ever seen Rick and Morty at all?
A little bit. I'm familiar with it.
Okay. Because the producer of Rick and Morty, Mike McMahon, is doing this. The scene you're referencing is very reminiscent of the final scene of the first episode of Rick and Morty, which her character is like the old crazy scientist guy, and Boimler's character is like the crazy scientist guy's grandson. And at the end, Rick, who's the grandfather, is like, "Oh, we're going to go on all kinds of adventures. RickandMorty.com. Rick and Morty take on the world. We're gonna do all this stuff." And he's just like, "What? I don't want to do all that kind of stuff. I just want to chase girls." He's like, "Oh, it's going to be so fun, Morty. You're going to love it, Morty." So when I saw that scene, it was very reminiscent, basically where it's like, so that's what it's going to be about, guys. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Any feedback so far that you've been able to observe? I mean, in the chats or, people's response from the public.
People have said that there are a lot of Easter eggs. I didn't notice Easter eggs as much as just, flat out mentions of characters, like all the characters we just mentioned. Right. There was one, the ops thing. That was kind of one. I forgot specifically what that was, but there was a mention of ops. I could check real quick. But that's what this show is going to have. It's going to have a lot of nods to previous Star Trek series.
And is the goal of this show now, are we looking at a 10-episode season arc like we're used to?
Yeah, it's going to be 10 episodes, yeah.
Okay.
Don Crandall, by the way, said, "Ask if you like this better than the animated series." But Cirroc, you haven't seen the animated series yet, and so I can't.
I haven't. Well, what about you? You've seen it.
Yeah. Well, let me see.
And is there any similarity in the two? Are they completely different?
No, completely different. Completely. Like, not even. I mean, the only similarity is that they're animated. The animated series of Star Trek was barely even animated. It's not good animation, but that's because it was the 70s. What I liked best about the animated series of Star Trek was theme song. Super cool, super snazzy 70s tune. Loved it. But yeah, no, it's totally different. That was the continuation of Kirk and Spock. It was kind of like the 4th season of the original series. But yeah, totally different. I don't know which one I'd like better. I'll probably end up liking this one better. The other one's just kind of comfort food. It's just kind of easy to watch. It's enjoyable. It's relaxing. You get to discover new alien creatures that they couldn't do, you know, in the original series, for example. I'm looking for the kind of... Oh, Don says that the Trill's name is Ensign Barnes, which would be weird because that sounds like a very human last name. So we'll have to see about what the deal is if her name really is Ensign Barnes, because I don't remember and I didn't go back to check.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff crammed in that episode. It's hard to keep. Like, I didn't remember half of the names. You know, I wrote down Rutherford. I just learned Mariner was her name. Boimler stood out to me. But it was, you know, all of this stuff wasn't, you know, was going by so fast. It was like, all right, okay, I got to soak all this stuff in.
Yeah, that's the thing is you can either take notes or you can watch.
Yeah, watch it again.
Oh, the cetacean ops reference. That's what it was. There was a cetacean ops reference just when he was pointing at the stuff, but I don't remember what that's from. It was mentioned before. I think it was just mentioned before, but we never saw it. So that was one of those deep cut things where they just mention, they do one mention of something that was mentioned once 30 years ago. So those are the ones where it's like, there might be a few more of those that pop up, you know, that we missed. Possibly. Then there was the zombie outbreak. That was kind of weird, but quick and easy and fun. You know, let's we only got a couple minutes left before we close this out. Before we go, do you have a couple characters that you liked?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm still getting used to it. I still have to watch them all get fleshed out. I mean, I do like Boimler. I like Boimler, and I like his approach to even the comedy. I think the comedy works because he's the, you know, the reluctant protagonist in this particular piece, right? So I like that. There was a moment where he's talking with the captain at the end, and she's like, "So, did you see anything?" And he's like, "No, you know what? Maybe the fact that that I essentially cured everybody of this zombie thing lost my memory or something."
Yeah.
He's like, "Since I didn't get credit for that, you know."
Yeah, you know, I think I'm gonna like that captain. You know, it's hard to like the upper decks. An upper decker, by the way, something totally different. But the upper decks, it's hard to like them right away because they're getting very few lines, but they're all very they're caricatures of characters, you know, especially the security officer and the douchey first officer. I think he's going to be great. We only got a little taste of him, and the crotchety doctor. I think we're going to like those characters more as we get to hear them more, but obviously it's about those 4 lower decks specifically. You're right. I do like Boimler more than I thought. When I saw the trailer, I was like, oh, this guy just seems like a dork or a loser or a wimp or whatever you want to call it. But when you watch the first episode, you find out, well, that's only, you know, he's got more depth than that. He's actually takes his Starfleet career very, very seriously. He's just kind of a nervous, weird wreck, you know?
Yeah, there was a moment where he was like, Starfleet code 39 says that you can't do this, and she's like, yeah, and Starfleet code says you can't point a gun and this and that. And he said, all right, clearly you know more codes than I do.
They also dropped a couple little hints that we're going to find out way more about Mariner, because how does she know all these things? She also mentioned that she was demoted. How was she demoted? She served on the USS Quito, which is a city, I think it's in Peru. I think it's the capital of Peru, Quito. Not that matters, but then she might go back.
Yeah, no, I thought keto was OJ's house guest, but that was somebody else.
Keto Kalen. I thought you were going to say the diet, the keto diet. Yeah. So obviously they planted a lot of seeds that make us want to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's all about Mariner's past. Like why she was demoted, what's up, what happened at the keto, why does she have a different last name than her parents, and all these kind of things we're going to find out later.
And she I think she said something to the fact, something like, I was here for the first contact a year ago.
Right.
And I'm like, whoa, okay. So they make first contact, and then they're like, we'll be back next year to follow up on the languages and stuff like that. I thought that was funny.
A lot of nudity in this episode. I just realized it's nudity everywhere. So stay tuned for more of that.
Yeah, it's not necessary for them to get it done. To me, I thought it was a little bit gratuitous and a little bit too much nudity. But they can get away with it because it is animated, and they're not doing full frontals. But I just feel like
stay tuned.
Yeah. Please no alien nudity, but
that's an interesting thought though. Like what? Like if there's an alien, like a really big weird alien, not just like a Star Trek alien with like a dot on his forehead. And what are you talking about? I'm an alien. Look, but like an alien that actually looks like an alien with clothes. What if it takes off his clothes? That won't be nudity because won't look like. You're not going to see it's what we think is its junk. You're going to see like tentacles or something down there, or like ridges or something. You're going to be like, oh, wait, what is that?
Yeah, I thought the nudity you were referring to was the spider's mouth, because that was enough nudity for me in this episode.
There's a quick thing about Rick and Morty's animation is that the story is that there's always some kind of like genitalia or something in the art. Like in the background, there's like trees that look like wieners, or there's like an alien with like what looks like a nutsack hanging from its jaw, like all these weird little things where if you look at it, you're like, why is there, feels like there's all these like genitalia in every scene. There's like boobs and wieners and butts and stuff, but it doesn't actually, anyway. So there might be more of that. So be careful.
Okay, so they slide that in there. And is it the same animators that did that are working on this, or is this a whole new group of animation group?
That I don't know. I don't know. That would be interesting to know. Feels like the animation looks a little different. It's somewhat similar. Let me see. But I think it looks different. It looks different to me.
It's funny because years ago, this is decades ago, my friend is a animator, and he wanted to bring back the Star Trek animated series. And
cool.
So we actually pitched an animated show to Rick Berman in early 2000s.
No way.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the idea was?
Yeah, it was more of a serious show, more of a reboot of the original animated Star Trek show. The idea was the animation would be done by Hanna-Barbera, who also was willing to put up some money. So we actually had...
No way.
We had investors and everything. It was kind of a big deal. And then we lined up all this stuff. We did all the artwork and, so we can present the characters and all this prep work. And then we get into Rick's office and he's like, no.
Damn.
So, and that was like, 20 years ago. So I'm glad it finally came to fruition. Not what I envisioned the way I envisioned it.
Sure.
Obviously completely different.
That's really cool though. Was it going to have the original series characters? Like Kirk and Spock and them?
No, it wasn't going to have the original series character. It was a Starfleet Academy animated show.
Beautiful.
So
Beautiful.
it was about Starfleet Academy, and we were going to have new characters, but it was geared towards the younger crowd because obviously animation in the younger crowd.
Yep.
And, Rick didn't think it was a great idea at the time, and I think he is hesitant to work with these other studios that we had attached to it,
It's a great idea. Could have been really awesome. Would have been going at the same time as Enterprise. That would have been cool.
Yeah, it would have been great, but there's a time and place for everything, so
Right.
it's finally here.
All right. Well, I think we're just about done here. We covered just about everything. Guys, in the comments below, this is the big one. Let us know all of the Easter eggs that you've seen, because I know we've missed a bunch. I know there are other things, and I know people are going to keep finding new ones, like they're going to see a drawing of something, in the background. So tell us everything that was, all the Easter eggs, all the things that we missed in the comments below. Let us know. We want to learn all this stuff. Plus, I love seeing that kind of stuff. I love seeing all the Easter eggs and figuring them out. Sometimes I don't even know what they are. Sometimes it's some old original series reference I've forgotten.
Yeah, and also let us know what character that you're looking forward to learning more about. Which one has piqued your interest and you want to find out more about.
Right. Priscilla Barnes. Just kidding. Her name is Ensign Barnes, the Trill. Priscilla Barnes was a lady that played in Three's Company. So who cares?
Okay.
But I love Three's Company. Anyway. All right, cool. So everybody, yeah, that's your marching orders. Let's get some comments going with some interesting chat. Sounds great. We'll see you again next week. And until next time, always remember the 7th rule.